Bienvenidos, worldwide fans of the planet Sci-Fi Entertainment with an Edge. Jaime En Fuego here, and I welcome you to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment, once more for another brief little rapido review here in the converted office area in the midst of switching things around in my Casa Fuego during the pandemic and all that silliness. But this is a show that is going to be premiering later tonight, Monday, October 5th on AMC. I believe it's 10 p.m. Eastern Time. But this is a show that I checked out a brief trailer for, and it's not really of the spooktacular variety, which is why it's here on my personal channel instead of over on the horror show. But this is none other than Soulmates. Yeah. Fuego's got a little bit of a hopeless romantic tinge to him, and yes, why am I speaking in the third person? Terrible, dude. No, this is it's an anthology developed by the AMC network, so, you know, they're trying to diversify themselves a little bit, and, you know, without Preacher anymore, with The Walking Dead trying to expand, but, you know, marching towards its final, regular season, at least of the original show. And, yeah, they needed some new players in there, but this is essentially a 6-episode anthology. It's kind of them, you know, just doing the Black Mirror thing to a degree, but with a central concept. And the Black Mirror connotations are obvious because the two people behind this show, which, as I double-check here, are William Bridges and Brett Goldstein. Yeah, there is previous work on both Stranger Things and Black Mirror. Now, I'm not sure if it was Black Mirror when it was still back with Channel 4, I think was where it originated in the UK before it migrated over to Netflix and stuff. But yeah, so I just got done watching this first episode. It's going to be one of 6 different ones, and each story within these constraints is going to tell, from what I gauge, a different way that a couple responds to the fact that 13 years in the future, they figured out how to match people based on their souls. Hence the name Soulmates. And so they developed this technology that allows them to isolate that gene or that aspect of yourself, and yet I always migrate back to horror, and I'm suddenly thinking of that great Season 6 Tales from the Crypt episode that had, I think, like Dwight Yoakam in it, and the doctor had found the soul gland, and it's a killer episode. One of the last really great Tales from the Crypt episodes. I was just watching South Park before this, but nonetheless, Soulmates. Yeah, it's boasting some serious talent. You've got Charlie Heaton. He's from Stranger Things. He's an older Byers boy. You've got Malin Ackerman, who I've always enjoyed. Bill Skarsgård is on here. So there's familiar faces that you will most definitely recognize, you know, from both the big screen and the small screen. But despite the intriguing concept of trying to match people up based on these soul profiles and basically through this new technology, finding your exact match and getting you into contact with them if they are already in the database, and if not, you will be notified once they enter it. I didn't like this, man. Well, it basically put forth a very interesting just quandary, paradigm, if you will, of especially with this first narrative. Now, I don't know how any of the other 5 episodes are going to go, but in this one, you have Nikki, this wife who has been married to her husband for a number of years. They have a child together, and yet the seed is planted in her head when a nearby neighbor, and maybe even more importantly, her older brother, who was about to turn 50, decided to put himself through this testing process and try to find his soulmate, so to speak. He married her 6 weeks later, and yet it's problematic, there's fighting, but, you know, he remains resolute and positive and says, well, I mean, despite the fact that I'm upset she's banged 5 more people than me, or whatever it may be, I need to get off my high horse and just realize this is the one. This is who I'm supposed to be with. It's my match. And it just basically takes the plenty of fish and Tinder and all that different shizzle way beyond any sort of like vague gray area justification and stuff, or it doesn't match. I don't know. I've never used any of those dating apps, and I'm, you know, very happy where I'm at. But nonetheless, yeah, I haven't delved into those things. So I think maybe somebody who has done that sort of thing before and maybe had either positive or negative results or just gray area, whatever. If you're more familiarized with that sort of process, then perhaps you would find this a little more interesting. But the biggest problem for me was I didn't really find a major amount of likability for any of our characters, but most notably the one who we centrally focus on, which is Nikki, and the fact that she basically is at the beginning of the episode in a presumably happy marriage, but yet the gears start turning in her head about, what if things could be better? What if he is more so just like a friend slash partner as opposed to my ultimate lover and all of that different stuff. And so she wavers at times throughout the episode, and you think that, she's kind of reeling it back in, and especially with the way that they approach the finale without spoiling anything. They tried to redeem her character perhaps a little bit more than I thought was ultimately necessary, but it's just really a sad slog of a show, at least from this perspective of this couple, because it is really just about the deterioration that could potentially transpire for these people that are resistant to it. And they're like, no, I'm not gonna see if there is a potentially better person out there, especially if I have a well-established relationship that it predates this technology even being available to the general public. And so that's my biggest issue with this, was while performances were good, boy, Nikki's character I just really, really didn't like, because there is instance after instance where, you think she's kind of turning over a new leaf, trying to advise a friend of hers that I mentioned, who's, in the same neighborhood, who was like, yeah, I decided to go and get my match, and I was really hoping it was my husband, and it's not. And then it turns into him being like, yeah, I'm taking the kids and I'm kicking your ass out. And she is like, well, how could you be so selfish to think that he would just go along with all of this and it would all just be hunky-dory fine, Well, I guess if he's supposed to be your match, that's who you should be with, despite the years of partnership and just getting to know somebody and forging forward. And also the naivety that they discuss in this episode, in the fact that, people are willing to just jump right into it based on scientific data as opposed to actual real connection of interaction, which, I think this is definitely commentary about how people don't really meet in person as much anymore, and they have those initial, the initial contact is done through a dating app, or it's done through a social media of some sort, or whatever. And that's, it's the world that we live in, and most definitely in the midst of the pandemic, as we're still encountering and just bracing ourselves to fight through and everything. This was a show that, despite having interesting ideas in this first episode, it really just turned into a depressing bit of discourse about the nature of, self-doubt in relationships, wondering if the grass is proverbially greener and all of that. So I definitely cannot recommend this show. I have that AMC upgrade thing where they let me watch it a little bit early, and so that's why I can actually get this review up, and I know all of the different bigger publications and stuff are already putting their thoughts about it as well, whether it's even worth your time when there's so many other things to potentially watch out there through all of our various streaming services. And so, yeah, man, I definitely, at least for this episode, cannot recommend Soulmates, at least for this episode. The thing is, since each installment is going to be self-contained and with a completely different cast, and since I really like, Charlie Heaton and Malin and some of these other actors that are going to be featured in different shows, I'm curious what some of the other just approaches to this technology being out there, especially if we see it from, different cultures, different parts of the world, all of these sort of things. I feel like there is a novel enough concept where this could be explored and could be just increasingly more interesting than what we get in this introductory episode. Because this introductory episode, once you get past just wrapping your head around what people are doing in this new age, in this not too distant future, the squabbles with the husband and wife, and as you see the downward spiral that is transpiring from her second guessing everything and from her intrigue and allure to this, it does not maintain the fascination aspect, and it really just does turn into that sad slog of just it's a bummer of a show, and I'm kind of thinking that that's probably the course that they're going to take throughout the rest of this, especially if it is kind of that Black Mirror, which is obviously in turn inspired by things like the EC Comics and Twilight Zone and Outer Limits and stuff like that. Definitely more so on the sci-fi, the weird tales sort of set of the EC Comics compared to Vault of Horror or Haunt of Fear, Vault of Horror, all those different like scarific books that they did. But nothing scary about this, with the exception of the idea that it puts forth that we rush into things based on limited interaction and time in person with each other, in comparison with having to do things the old-fashioned way, which, before this rise of social media, interactive dating apps, and all this different stuff, things were drastically different. And so, that's my thoughts on this. I'm unfortunately going to give it 2 out of 5 Fuego Fireballs. This is a malo show, at least in the first episode, but I'm curious enough that I will at least try maybe another episode or 2, but if the concept doesn't intrigue you, if that sort of plotting and romantic melodrama sort of thing is not up your alley, you're definitely not going to like this. So, I've been Jaime En Fuego. You can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Here on the YouTubies, please like, share, subscribe. It means a heck of a lot. I recently reviewed the first episode of the new South Park season, the Pandemic Special, which was also a disappointment, just in a completely different regard. The trailer reaction to the first trailer for Borat 2, that's coming later this month on Amazon Prime, not to theaters, so that's something to look out for. And if you like the aforementioned scarific stuff, the spooktacular, it's the month of October, so definitely jump over to youtube.com/The Horror Show channel, just like you see below. That's where myself, the showrunner, and the other producer along with myself, and producer Dave, obviously, can't disregard that, Cecil Laird. Along with Robert Dewell and Marcia Parker, Susie von Slaughter, we cover everything under that frightening sun here in the Deadly Desert. And trailer reactions, reviews of everything from video games to films to television to comics, novels, all across the board. I have a weekly Stephen King show called Hail to Stephen King that is there. And so some support over there as well as here is greatly appreciated. So until the Reel of Ka comes around once more, everybody, hasta luego, San Amigos, constant readers and viewers alike, say thank you for a bit of your time here. And if you have watched Soulmates, what were your thoughts on it? Did you think I'm giving this a little bit of a harsh verdict based on just one episode in what is obviously going to be an anthology and tell different stories? So, yes, until then, I look forward to more film palaver sooner rather than later. And guys, watch more TV, stay home, be safe. That's really the best that I have for you right now.